Hi, Steve.
Hello, Harry.
Doug, Frank.
Hello.
Steve Goldman has 2 published books of poetry, The Canon of the Long Ranger and The Unplanned Child, respectively semi-autobiographical and autobiographical poems, and is included in 3 anthologies. He has poems, articles, and reviews in numerous and sundry publications, such as Solo and Poetry International. He has initiated and facilitated various public poetry support activities, reading series, workshops, and an experimental theater poetry, both in and out of Beyond Baroque. He writes in a variety of styles: lyric, narrative, dramatic, and satiric. His principal themes are the oppression of the individual and group, love, and interest in Zen, agonized commentary on world events, mostly serious, if not dour stuff, but not unrelieved by power, shtick, and sometimes even rain. He loves and lives for poetry. Here's a splendid poet, Steve Goldman.
Oh, thank you, Harry, Jennifer, and Allegra for mounting this. And hello, Doug, and hello, new guy, Frank. All right, I'm going to do as Harry indicates. You're getting a little variety show with nothing additional, no snappy patter, as best I can. All right. Statement. The spacious jewel of a single deep breath on a crystal-struck morning of a mint-struck day, or taut autumn afternoon, or awash in the soft and riotous breezes of an evening in summer, just to be alive at all, culture twisting without end, intrigue of meaning, vibrato of life, the ravishment of a single strawberry. I rejoice against my instructions in a world of movement and bodies and things, orphaned now on the globe and alone with it. I drink the planet's water, piss it back, and if ephemeral, I am whole or nearly so. So here I live, a pinprick on this sprawling asphalt scab, backaches and root canals, the serial rebellion of the body, friends in dire trouble, grievous losses to Uncle Death, the door next door incessantly barking, and the prick that owns it called neighbor. The variegated contents of the world in anguished and precarious balance, machine guns and languages, cesspool and prize roses, Dachau and St. Francis, Dante and children with cancer, Nobel Prizes and beheadings, populations rotting dead on the ground, the little girl burned by the side of the road, first loves, miracle of salvation, lives of hell. Still, that dirty street, this clean window, that bird slanting the sky, the sheer particularity of each, the utter suchness of it all, apparently forever. Shopping in a shopping center this day, drenched in the real, which isn't. Hey, that guy is really walking over there. So, unworried at last, indemnified against fear, and ever nearer the frontier of myself being over, now I have time for eternity. With the horror unforgotten, what is mine are these: friends, exertions, songs in the corners of the morning. I walk down the days of my life, beatitude in opulent glory. I got to mention quickly, there's a line from Nikki Sellers in there, the great late Nikki Sellers. Hootenanny. You know what a hootenanny is. It's a bunch of folk singers coming together and improvising and singing. In the South, they call it picking and grinning. Hootenanny. Music heard so deeply that it is not heard at all. But you are the music while the music lasts. T.S. Eliot, The Dry Salvages. We come in ones and twos this night, a gentle crescendo of persons, more and more to the fold. Oh, an incremental chemistry of gathering of a slowly burgeoning critical mass. In the living room of one house on a planet spattered with blood, a world needing no other hell. Yet here, in placid but joyous fire, this rollicking effluvium of harmonies and somber canticles, we are inured to time, and the irradiated air of this room is now for a while the very substance of eternity. Our small, magnificent rite, conjoined in the agape of mutual voice, transcendent and as one in the metal of love so mustered. We band of brothers and sisters in our slender compact against death, this our beachhead of song. Zen. In the room of the white walls is a grenade, perfectly balanced on the apex of a cone of shining glass. Your slightest movement will cause it to topple and explode, killing you. The fragments roses. Change pace. B minus. Those of you who have been to college and those of you still victimized by it will remember that it is a place up where human flesh is cut up and graded according to USDA standards of meat quality. You will remember that an A meant excellent, outstanding, above and beyond, kudos, laudamus te. B was good, not bad, better than average or expected, vaguely commendable. B minus, which is what I almost always got, was, as its coded name implies, almost good, but not quite good. And, quote, given your vaunted ability, actually reprehensible, close quote. C and its cousin C plus and C minus were shades of merely adequate, passing but pedestrian, dismal, ho-hum, lackluster, but in a culture such as ours, which prizes excellent, yeah, right, like hell we do, cast nonetheless by universal innuendo in a bad light, all the more. The gentleman C, indeed. D was worse yet, passing but barely, odious, ignominious, passing yet, but just barely. Although out of the goodness of our hearts, asshole, and only that, we'll give you another chance, maybe. F and its pseudonym E stood, of course, for failure, the death warrant. When I die and go to heaven, the best I ever hope to hear from the voice booming above the feet of the almighty celestial throne is B minus, Goldman. You get a B minus for your life. B minus. That's your final grade, Goldman. Final and eternal. So that then and there at least I may all aspirations cease. All right. This is the clone phone. Ready? Good. The latest innovation from the phone company is the clone phone. You simply dial a secret number known only to you, and a greasy smoke issues from the distant earpiece and coalesces into an exact genetic replica of you, and at your age, too. Now, at last, you can talk to yourself and finally plumb the mysteries of your identity, the goal of all enlightened religion and modern psychotherapy. But the trouble is, the other party is just as insane, difficult, and resistant as you are, and you were better off when you talk to yourself alone. Okay. Rescue. In Aleppo, sure, she was dead, but no more than 4 weeks old. She is rescued from the rubble after 16 hours. She is alive, and the actual rescuer weeps as he extracts her. The cheer from all rocks the ceiling of heaven. They are cheering for life. All right, camp. This is tough. Told you, variety. Camp. You let this thing reoccur to you, get nuts, but that's the way to read poetry, I think. In camp, in one of the camps from one of the rescuing armies, British or American, a massive bulldozer is dumping tons of the tangled dead into a mass grave. As its capacious bucket lowers and the bodies begin to slide, an impossibly beautiful young woman is seen just left of center in the frame. face of small, perfect features, an alabaster cameo surmounted with a framing arc of blackest hair. She is seen as outwardly intact, naked for the shower. As her downward traverse begins, her long and stately limbs somehow splaying in all directions amid her enmeshed comrade's cargo of the bucket. At the moment she begins to take her floppy leave of the monster's vast mandible, one perfect breast bobbles a bit, and I am in love. Short one. Gathering from 12. Gathering. In the room of 10,000 smiles, I wield this fiddle with friends and sing to the roof beams with the women. What matter if old death waits complacent in his rusty car somewhere up the road? Tonight, this is the only game in town. Fall, as in autumn. Fall has always been my season, somehow consecrant to me. Not frivolous spring, but when New England's sacred leaves as muted rainbow stained glass window shards, astride episodes of cold breath, whirl helicoptering to the ground, senescent now, but at the apex of their beauty, when in barren season, Mother Demeter is said to walk the browning lands. I come again, darkly alive. Okay. It's a prose poem, for short. It's prose, but it's supposed to have poetic intent. This is called Dating Service Bio. Well-nigh penniless, 76-year-old bachelor, severely dysfunctional background, eccentric as hell, irascible, short-fused, socially difficult, worst job history in the United States of America, inveterate smart mouth, absolute pariah to his respectable family, automatically terrifying to any polite middle-class gathering merely by entering the room, poet and sometimes fencing instructors, both growth industries both, seeks drop-dead gorgeous blonde woman of similar orientation for ludicrous misunderstandings, bitter acrimonious fights, and sweet, tender mid. All right. I'll tell you, Brian, shopping cart lady. At eventide, the house lights of the world are dim in purple silver. The dried old woman of the street, rolling her head, her home of woven steel, croons to me in her madness. I sing back. The newest Colossus. I will make a remark. Hopefully everybody knows the poem on the base of the Statue of Liberty, The New Colossus. It's legendary. There's lines, give me you're tired, you're poor, and so on and so forth. This is a take on that. The newest Colossus. Quite like the massive wall of Chinese yore, extending north to south, the Middle Kingdom's length, to demonstrate the emperor's matchless strength, here at our southeast border's portal war door, excluding now the wretched migrants, tired, sick, and poor, will stretch a mighty fortress wall its total scope to make America great again, our fondest hope. Assign their folks from BCI and ICE, armed as if for battle in World War, whilst caging beaner children and their lice. Kidnapped from wetback parents, terrorista, druggie, whore, yet this mighty edifice so sure, excluding filthy riffraff from shithole lands, will surely thwart some kids' ambitious lands who someday just might cancer cure, while trumpeting forth our glory all to see. Once the land of the brave, once the home of the free, but bereft now of compassion quite at all, I lift my gun beside this goddamned wall. Harry, your face is a one-man audience. I love it. This is John Doe during the Southern California floods of February 92. I am an unidentified homeless person, except to say that I am a male Caucasian, about 35, clad only in a ski vest and shorts. So when the flash flood came like a hammer, inundating the dry riverbed where I slept and killing me outright as I lay, that is how the television put it. I carried no papers. As I lost my name while I was alive, there will be no finding it in death. They simply won't go to the expense. Why is it that so many people are relatively all right in their lives and I had to die twice?
Steve, that's the time. Thank you for your learned, eloquent, poignant
Was that it?
reading.
Did I end on one more short one?
Go ahead. Absolutely.
Right.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is the last. Untitled. Do not love me for my fabled wit. There are comedians at least as good. Do not love me for my dark brown eyes. They only see the cornflower blue of yours. But love me as an infant, starving, dying in Africa or on the Ganges banks. Love me in the small dreams of unremembered people. Love me on that train to Auschwitz. And love me in that gas chamber. Love me on a beach somewhere, already wounded, yet fighting still for love. But love me for the burning pain ordained for me at birth, as I love you for yours, which is the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve Goldman, for that wonderful reading. A pleasure. And our next poet is Doug Knott. Doug Knott has been writing and performing poetry in Southern California for many years. He is the author of the collection Small Dogs Bark Cartoons, various chapbooks, and is included in the anthology Outlaw Poetry Bible. He was a member of the traveling poetry performance troupe, the Karma Bums, who performed more than 250 shows in LA and throughout the West Coast. He was the president of the board of Beyond Broke Literary Foundation in Venice, 2013 to 2017. His recent video, Sunset Strip Self-Improvement Affirmation, has been featured in several shorts film festivals. He won Lummox's magazine's Best Poem Contest in 2016. Here's a superb poet, Doug Knott.
I think I'm not muted. Anyway, thank you, Steve. I wrote the words focus, precision, and about your poetry, but I added laughter, hilarious, and excitement. So I'm so pleased to read with Steve Goldman, and hello, Frank. So I want to start. I did this reading happily and fortunately with Harry some months ago, maybe a year ago. So I said to myself, it's got to be all new stuff. And because I read some of my greatest hits, so to speak. So we're on the new ground. And the first poem I'm going to read is called Apology to Greta Thunberg. And I think we all know who she is. And it's a longish poem. Okay. Apology, and it's a bit of a rant. Mm-hmm. Apology to Greta Thunberg. You're right about that global warming, kid. We spent it, we drove it, we burned it, we fueled it, we rode it, but we didn't pay for it. Didn't think it was your future, too. We are your distinguished elders and came of age just before the peak of the wave. And we've surfed it to the shore, rolling in like pearls. We're the coolest. We didn't have to work for it. We just got laid on us by the big living earth, Gaia. Yes, she said, take my breast. And we took her blood, skin, and bones, too. And our generation has enjoyed every possibility of living wherever we want, wherever we choose to go. We're the party of freedom, meaning we partied with freedom. Now we're those hard-boiled eggs in the sunset. What do you want from us? Please deliver your rage to our chattering class. We are the tribe. the human tribe. And we welcome you, Greta, to this fat ball planet where we're all born out of God's word. And when we get hungry, we go out on the crinkled, bulgy landscape and kill a big elephant to feed our tribe. Lots of meat. We eat. Then dance, pray, fuck. Then pray, fat, dance, pray, fuck, dance. Afterwards, sleepity sleep. Then get up, have coffee, make civilization, hammocks, clay pots, sexy figurines of gods, Broadway plays. We create a world of light and dark, sex, poetry, ocean-going plastic, capitalism, terrorism, religion, a house fantastic for us alone. Enough. We hungry again. Let's get another elephant or at least an In-N-Out burger. There's always more food, isn't there? It'll all work out somehow. There will be a solution somehow. But somehow it all gets fuzzy when I try to think about it. I can't shoot the hoop of what to do. You say the only way is massive political action, no oil, and eat nothing in plastic? Not a chance, even if everyone else does it. Who helps who control what? The earth is so stressed digesting us. Where can it shit except on you? So sorry, we knew but didn't know, and now you know, but what to do? Also, there is no individual guilt. We're all absolved and complicit. All I ever did was drive my car and turn on the house lights and some air con. Me, such an ordinary, tiny consumer. In case the planet might shrug us off, you might consider the intrinsic death wish of the species. And all that plastic in the guts of whales, we share the gifts. Climate change is the spiritual vaccination for those of us on the edge of the afterlife. The seas will rise, the continents fall. I thought I'd never live to see it happen, but I was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for listening to that, and sorry for the slight interruption. Somebody said, what's the point of view on climate change? That was my effort. Okay. I have another longish poem that I just wrote, and although it's set back in time, and I rarely write family poems because of the problematic nature of my family that I was born to, but this one is a little bit broader. And I'll just, the original title was Grandfather in St. Augustine, Florida. I'm from, I don't sound like it, but I'm from Crackerland, put that way. So, and I had an accent, which when I had to go to college, they called me Southerner and I dropped it, right? Okay, this one is called Grampy Wore Gray. He was the coolest guy. Gave me a little bicycle when I was 6. I learned to ride on the stone path around the grand old Spanish fort, its walls 30 feet thick, later occupied by English invaders, and then the militant Confederacy. The best fort ever for a little boy. Grampy played a card game called Russian Bank with 4 decks and 2 players. And when I played with him, he remembered every trick and hid behind his fan of cards, murmuring, bad, bad, bad. And then he nailed me with his hidden queen, of course. So I appreciated his military technique. His own father, a lieutenant in the Confederate Army, his father's father, a private in the same. My grandfather was proud of the Army of Northern Virginia and made sophisticated jokes about President Lincoln, pointed out the battles like Second Bull Run and Old Lusty just out of Jacksonville, where we done beat the Yankee and killed 500 Union soldiers, 200 of whom were black. But my grandfather was buddies with an old black guy named Singleton who rode a bicycle and fixed things around the house. They cruised around together side by side in the wide front seat of grandfather's old Cadillac. But on my dad's side, my uncle in Tallahassee threw me out of the house after I did the big Selma March in '65. Said I stunk like an N-word, but I was glad to go and left Dixie and the Lost Cause to go to school up north in Yankee land, where they call me Southerner. So I dropped my cracker accent to fit in and even said I was from New York, and started talking like I was Jewish from Brooklyn. Then the South got real unpopular. But I was in the civil rights generation, marching in the big marches because I thought it was right, and became a beatnik type of modern person. Although I am no longer modern, but peeking over the edge of my personal world as it extends day to day and flat like a map, which means I will soon fall off the edge into here be dragons and sea monsters. And it looks like the Confederate Army has come around again, now flying the banner of the criminal ex-president, except without the bravery, dignity, and honesty of my grandfather. And I know how they think, that they got screwed and will stand tall and fight back against invaders, and how tough they are, and how much they love the orange-haired demon who spews insect lies to inspire their fierce cause, now lost that they are the most righteous form of man. And they will not respond to peace because they're accustomed to casual hate, like the chewed stump of a cigar gone sour in the bowl. And I see them on the other side of me, like Arjuna, the mythic prince of India, saw his own family rigged out and carrying swords on the enemy side of the Bhagavad Gita. But I don't ride in Krishna's stone chariot of mind. I ride my mental bicycle around the lucky fort called home. And my grandfather is 50 years all bones in the disintegrating swamp of history with his battle-winning cards from the game of Russian Bank. Sentimental in affection for the stars and bars, and a little boy's love. He's all fermented in his box under the Spanish moss, the verdant stink of the salt marshes always near the nose in St. Augustine, sweat even in the shade. And now only a memory, a movie about to end, that little bicycle rolling downhill through the last bars of the ancestral song in Dixieland where I was born, Richmond, Virginia, 1943, going, and gone.
Bravo.
Wow, well, thank you. That's the first time I read that poem.
It's terrific. It's just terrific.
Well, from you, Steve, I'll take it.
Well, you got it done.
All righty. Well, this is another twist. It's because of Harry. Okay, Harry? I don't have a real straight movie poem like you could write. By the way, we know our host was Martin Scorsese's favorite guy, Mean Streets, The Last Scene, Harry Northup, okay? All right. This is called Like a Hollywood Lawyer. Like, because it's like that, right? It's a little bit, minded tales. Part 1, poetry does not require cash. Life and movies require cash. Walter required a lawyer. I required cash and threw in some poetry for interest. By the way, I'm an ex-lawyer. Let me start again. Poetry does not require cash. Life and movies require cash. Walter required a lawyer. I required cash and threw in some poetry for interest. Walter, an old-time movie indie producer, a phone in each ear guy, talked twisty as a Mobius stripper, made deals in a whisper. I, as lawyer, a casual bottom feeder, not tough but easy, enjoyed Walter, his hair slick, just back from Cannes. Walter, an anaconda, was too fat to get in my Mini Cooper, but took movies to Cannes, the big topless international film festival, and sold them on a burnished yacht deck under big bright breasts of sun. Distribution followed. Burp. Part 2. We sat in the rented Laurel Canyon pool house office at the end of the sculpted blue swimming pool where stars once swam breaststroke and Walter and I now contemplated astronomical sails. People sued, but that was expected, even among the good guys. However, and hereinbefore, no trademark, patent, or copyright infringement could catch our legal moonwalk. I watched as clients entered the pool house, stage left. There was a heave in the gable structure as they were consumed. Out came Walter, brimming with contracts I had copied from genius form books. Relieved smiles by the swimming pool and odes to the four-cornered prose I composed all about. Roll over tax years, trigger that loan, and who's exposed? If you ever see the phrase, kindly be advised, get out of town. Okay. So this is, listen, this is a kind of a special poem, okay, Harry? It's, call it kind of Hollywood poem where we live, L.A. It's called OJ's Photography Joke. And I want to explain something. I'm an amateur photographer my whole life. And in the days of film, if you shoot a dark subject against a dark background, film goes fast, very clear. So if you're shooting black people, you got to use a flash. Okay, you being any photographer, all right? Because of the factor of the film. So OJ's Photography Joke. And the other thing is I'd seen O.J. Simpson in a couple of movies. He's a really good comic movie actor, okay? And so he understands photography. Mid-90s, between the trials, O.J. sat alone at the bar in Santa Monica. His high point, because he'd just been acquitted of the murders and the civil suit was still in his pocket. Everybody knew him. So I made no small talk like, are you Mr. Simpson? Duh. Can I have my picture taken with you? I asked instead, loving the thrill of edge and notoriety. No one had any doubt he had killed his blonde wife and the young man with the round glasses. So I sat down next to the double murderer in a haze of celebrity that drifted like cigar smoke, my butt safe in a public bar. And OJ, courteous and lavish with the demeanor of a crime boss, said, "Sure, my man," and flipped his alligator hand, clasping my shoulder like a buddy on TV. I called my friend from the other room to take a photo with my disposable camera, me with the Heisman Trophy football winner presently holding on to the biggest murder rap in the world. And the damn photo flash wouldn't go off. As an amateur photographer, I know you need flash to shoot black people in gloomy rooms because pre-digital film makes dark go quicker than the eye. Take it again and make sure the flash works, I exclaimed. And OJ, whose side gig was comic movie acting, said, "I won't take that as a racist remark." Quite a specific photography joke. He was in great humor and charisma and folded me close to him for a photo. I felt the strength of muscles hard as a python, a great athlete gone jealous and wicked, now strutting around in public because that's showbiz, which he was. And me too. I was the fan, now with a sick souvenir. A photo located in an album now in storage, all light smeared because my friend bobbled the camera. But you can see me and OJ in a bright circus of nostalgia. I even felt high from his charisma, which my friend picked up on. And then he wanted to have his picture taken with the wayward star. So we went back into the bar, but OJ had shape-shifted through a silent back door. But he made the news pages when jail finally came, and now he's out with the old man jowls, a limp, and the mark of Cain on his forehead. And like Cain, no one can touch him because he's an artist of the broken field who ran through football, the woman, public opinion, his own conscience, the sentence, and jail, all the way to that bar with me in Santa Monica. And even I thank him for that polite moment between murder trials.
Thank you, Doug.
Hey,
That was
Doug.
marvelous reading. I love your narrative strength, your clarity, your precision, your wit, your observance, your observations of history, and the telling of your family, part of your family history. Thank you very much, Doug Knott.
Well,
Our
thank you
next
so much,
poet-
Harry. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next poet is Frank Schuller. Frank began his professional career while still in college, University of Miami, BA in Theater Arts, and a minor in radio, TV, and film. The early years of his career were in South Florida. He did everything from acting, directing, designing, and building sets for community theater to directing the dubbing of foreign films to hosting and writing his own weekly magazine TV show, The Electric Eye, on the local ABC channel, to acting in feature films, TV shows, including 22 appearances in Jackie Gleason's American Scene magazine and a musical version of The Hummingbirds, to the beginning of his long history of TV commercials, over 250. Frank moved to LA in 1982 and continued acting, directing, and writing until he retired in 2002. A terrific writer, here's Frank Schuller.
Thank you, Harry. The first one I'm going to read is called Ideas. Ideas invade my mind like winter winds whistling through the cracks of a creaky old cabin. Whirligigs waffling off weather-beaten walls, leaving singular snippets suspended in space, seeking but only sometimes shown by celestial shafts of sunlight. Some enter softly, like baby's breath, purifying the process, conquering cold corners. Others creep in to close the cracks and crevices, but are battered about and dislodged by dark and dangerous storms, threatening to tear asunder the shaky shelter. I never seek to seal the doors or windows, to wallow in the fuzzy warmth of the familiar. I would suffocate in the silence and still air. This one is called Mind. Exploring the chambers of my mind, I test the shadows, now from a safe distance, then pushing farther into the darkness, testing. Are there windows in the darkness shuttered and closed? Can I push through the dark and force back the rusty hinges to reveal vast meadows of light? There has to be light beyond the dark. This one's called Old. I think everybody who's listening can. Okay. Well, I wake up to pee at 4 a.m. My pillow is cold and wet. Is it the flu or just plain worry? What causes these night sweats? Oh, how I want to collapse in the dark and sleep until 6 a.m., but I don't. I can't. The paper arrives, and I read the Daily Lament. To start my day, coffee is good, but 4 cups is too much to be had. I know I drink much more than I should, but today's news really is bad. My weight is up, my spirits are down, gravity's taken its toll. What used to go up, it stays pretty much down. Oh, how I hate to be old. My blood pressure's high, my spirits are low. I've lost my gumption, I get up and go. My heart is pounding, so is my head. The hell with it all, I'll stay in bed. I lie there thinking. My pillow gets wetter as I wait for my prunes to stew. I keep on hoping that things will get better, but my hopes and my prospects are few. My feet are swollen, my knees are weak. When I get out of bed, everything creaks. But the prunes do their job. They give me a rush. My headache is gone. I enjoy the dawn's hush. My morning walk is good for me. I stop and smell the roses, their scent divine, their beauty complete. They make me light on my toes. If truth be known, I cannot smell them. Yes, that's right, my nose is only good in this old age for feeble snorts and blowses. I saw a new lady walking today. I tried very hard not to jiggle. Good morning, I said. She lowered her eyes and uttered the sweetest giggle. Believe it or not, she smiled at me. My golly, was that a wiggle? We stopped and talked for a minute or two. I was very attracted. I think she was too. Well, do you walk here often? Not very original. When she smiled at that, I got a bit digital. I suggested we stop for a cup of tea. I'd love to, she said. Her eyes melted me. We chatted for hours, just like old friends. We found mutual interests. We both like to dance. And maybe later this week, She jumped at the chance. Oh, I'd love to, she said, and her eyes did that flutter that made my knees turn to butter. So, with her promise to meet me tomorrow, my doubts disappeared, and so did my sorrow. I sucked in my gut and walked away tall. It's not so bad to be old after all. The light. I walk with a light within me, and because I come from another time, and time always moves on, the light flickers now and then, not shining full time or driven as it once was by a giant turbocharged generator, but by something more resembling an old hand-cranked model. The light is still bright, but not full time, just garnering its energy and selectively flashing on and off like a strobe. But the light is no longer wasted as it was in its early life, dazzling but not properly focused. Now those intermittent streaks manifest more in half the time. An odd sort of a light, the strobe. It illuminates life in a herky-jerky fashion. But isn't life herky-jerky? And it's viewed as it is remembered in a series of brief moments. Like the proverbial cup, to paraphrase, is it half bright or half dark? In this case, two halves of a whole. And I hope those correctly aimed, startling flashes of brightness more than make up for the dark intervals. When this strobe finally burns out, I hope it will be remembered as a light that provided some illumination and for an eternity's moment brightened at least one heart.
That's lovely.
Thank you. This is a true story. This actually happened. I tried to get it down there exactly what happened. I call it American Dreamers. They were sitting across the table from me next to the Chinese food counter in the supermarket where I shop. A teenage couple. She wasn't pretty by the usual standards. He was not a handsome man, and he too was what you call small. They shared a chop suey dinner from a styrofoam container. He glanced about and whispered something in her ear. She replied slowly, "May I have the chop suey, please?" He tried to repeat the sentence. "May I have the chop suey, please?" The chop suey, please, she goes. "May I have the chop suey, please?" "Have," she said slowly, stressing the V sound. He nodded and repeated, "May I have the chop suey, please?" No, have, she gently corrected him. "Have it, please." "Have," he said carefully. "Please." She nodded. "May I have the chop suey, please?" he said cautiously. "Perfecto! Perfect," she said. He beamed and sat up straight. "May I have the chop suey, please?" "Perfect." She nodded and they exchanged sweet smiles, and then with eyes flashing, he spoke Spanish in a fervent rush, gesticulating with strong, calloused, working man's hands. One didn't need to know his native language to understand what he was saying. He was expressing his love for her and describing his dreams for them, for their future here in the United States. She smiled gently and touched his arm. She insisted he have the last spoonful of fried rice and the remains of the Coke they shared. And with a paper napkin, she wiped a bit of gravy from his mustache. He grinned and murmured something to her. She blushed, kissed him on the cheek, and then rose and cleared the table in front of them. He squared his shoulders and took her little hand in his as they walked towards the door, into the light, like giants. They were beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, sometimes I write a poem for an individual or individuals, and here's a couple of them. This one I called, it was written for a good friend of mine who was a bit sad and lonely after her daughter, her only daughter, and best friend, had graduated from college and moved away to begin her life in San Francisco with a new job. Spring has passed. Your planting is done. And summer has arrived. Your carefully sown seeds about to burst into blossom. will take their place in life's garden. Nurtured with hard work, love, and care, they will bring autumn's bountiful harvest and winter's sweet dessert. I was vacationing in the mountains of North Carolina one summer, and just as I was about to fall asleep in the cabin that I had rented, I heard the following. Woo, woo, woo. And it was just an old train chugging along. And 2 weeks later, when I was back in LA, I attended the 50th anniversary of two of the most dynamic 75-year-olds I ever knew. They were both quality people doing important work. And I wrote this for them, and I read it for them. It's called Old Trains.
Mm-hmm.
There's something nice about old trains. They just keep rolling along. No longer on the fast track, they sing a different song. No more speedy delivery with a loud and mighty roar. Now they wheeze and huff and puff when they go about their shores. Once they tugged and pulled and pushed, but now they grunt and snort and whoosh. But the ride is much more comfortable. So many say it's true. If you've been up and down that track and hauled a load or two, and best of all, when it's late at night and everyone's in bed, we hear the old familiar call. Woo, woo, full speed ahead. This is called My Place. There's a place I go when the advertised, politicized, plasticized, cosmeticized, rock and roll, immoralized world gets me down. It's nothing fancy, just a path, a few trees, some squirrels and grass, butterflies, an occasional spiderweb, and wildflowers. You'll hear the birds singing there, the winds whispering through the leaves, and often, if you listen carefully, quiet. I'll take you there if you like. Perhaps we could enjoy it before it is bulldozed to make room for another shopping center. This was an early poem, and it's it's either titled the Never-Ending Poem or The Beginning. Mom, I saw a bird, and then I saw a butterfly flying, and I followed it, and then I wrote a poem. Well, would you read it to me, dear? That's something I'd like to hear. Well, I can't, said the little boy, carefully examining the petals of a daisy. It's not finished yet. I think that's everything I brought.
Thank you, Frank, for your honest, observed, personal, rhythmical, concise, and touching poetry. It's a real pleasure to hear your writing. And you can see, all of us can see that Frank is sitting in the John Ford Chapel, which is here on the campus of MPTF.
And I was praying that I'd be okay.
Your prayers came through. We have about 5 minutes left. Could
Just one more thing. One more thing. I have some longer poems that are there. I think they might even go as far as 15 minutes. In the future, if you would have me back, I would like to read some. There's some of our. One is my masterpiece, and one that's a real ball breaker.
You may be the Robinson Jeffers of MPTF.
We have about 5 minutes left, and I would like to ask each one of you to take about a minute and just, we'll start with Steve Goldman, since he was the first, and then Doug, and then Frank. And the question is, when did you write your first poem, Steve?
Jesus, I don't know, Harry. I was a child, 3 years old or something like that. I just was taken with rhymes and music. And as a grade school guy, I'd ditch school and go read Kipling and Robert Service. I was not stealing hubcaps as I should.
How about you, Doug?
Well, I think I was a late bloomer. When you said that, I remembered. I wrote a few lines of something the poetic when I was about 14. And they're fairly delicate lines because I was trying to play baseball and stuff like that. but the lines were about a flowering tree. I just saw this tree with flowers on it, and I just said, that's happening, and I wrote a little about it, and I remember the little paragraph I wrote that was just images. And then I don't think I really wrote much until I started writing songs when I was started thumping, heard Bob Dylan and stuff like that.
How about you, Frank?
I think I was around 10 years old, and I wrote a poem. My father was a poet. He didn't have anything but a 10th grade education. He had a really rough life, but he was a wonderful poet. And he encouraged me when I told him I wanted to write poetry.
Steve and Doug and Frank, thank you for the reading. It's 2:00. I enjoyed your poetry. And here's Jennifer Clymer. We have to keep moving on. And thank you very much for your good work.
Thank you, Harry and Steve.
Thank you for having me.
Doug and Frank, you guys are wonderful.
And Jennifer.
Jennifer, I wish you could say more about your poetry. Buoyancy.